I'm Natalie from Marie Florence Catering. I'm going to make a recipe today, and it's going to be macaroni and cheese for 100 people. Yes, 100 people. But I'm not going to show you from exactly the beginning to the end, but I'm going to show you how to make a third of the batch of the cream sauce, the bechamel cream sauce, that we're going to use over our penne pasta, which I already boiled this morning, and we'll get to that. So my ingredients we have are a gallon of whole milk, we have 2 sticks or 8 ounces of butter, we have a lot of cheese. So we have a ½ pound of Parmesan cheese, ½ pound of gruyere cheese, we have a pound and a half of mild cheddar cheese, and we also have a pound of mozzarella cheese. And this is all going in our cream sauce. We also have for our roux with the butter, 8 ounces of flour or a cup of flour. And our spices, we're going to be using are a little bit of nutmeg, some white pepper, 2 of my favorite go-to spices, Sazon. We have the orange Sazon, which is achiote, and then we have our Goya powdered chicken bouillon, okay? And then of course, some salt and some granulated garlic. Alright, but first we're going to start with our milk. So what we're going to do first, we're going to take a whole onion, stick it in the pot. Alright, I just poured the last little bit of our milk into the pot, and we're going to go ahead and warm that up. Again, the reason we're doing this is so that we can get the milk nice and warm, so when we put it with the roux, it doesn't create like a grainy textured cream, because you don't want a grainy cream sauce. So warming up the milk is going to first infuse the onion flavor into the milk. Then also is going to help incorporate the milk into the hot roux once we get to that step. Okay, so it's going to take a few minutes for that. I'm going to dump the stuff away here. Okay. Alright, so now our milk is slowly coming to temperature, and what I also did was, because I love the flavor, I added a few sprigs of thyme. Now you can add 1, I added I think about 3 fresh sprigs of thyme. Alright, and this is what thyme looks like. It's very lemony, very earthy. It adds a really good flavor to really any dish, but macaroni and cheese, I love, love, love fresh thyme. Okay, so while our milk is warming up, which it should be ready to go shortly, we're going to start working on our roux, okay? So roux is a mixture of a fat and a flour. So we're going to use butter, my favorite thing, unsalted butter. So we're going to add 2 sticks of butter to our pot here, okay? And then we're going to let that melt down to a nice... Sometimes you could add a little bit of bacon fat. Okay. We want our temperature at about a medium low. Alright, while the roux gets going. So we're going to start our butter melting. 2 sticks, 8 ounces. Break it up a little bit just to get it going. Sorry for all the noise. Start at medium. Get the butter melting at medium. Alright, our butter is slowly melting. Usually when you watch something, it doesn't melt as fast as you'd like it to. So it's going down. We're getting there. Alright. Just checking our milk. The thing is with the milk, you really do not want the milk to boil. You just want to bring it up to a light simmer. So that's why I'm checking on it. Putting the cover on it helps it to kind of get to temperature a little bit faster. But you want to make sure that it does not boil. And it just boils all over the stove, and then we have a mess on our hands. Alright, so our butter is melted. Alright, and what we want to do is sprinkle in our all-purpose flour. So this is about a cup of flour, or what I did was I measured in weight, which is I think a better, more accurate way to measure the flour. It was 8 ounces of flour, okay? So we're just going to sprinkle it in and whisk the flour slowly into our butter, okay? And this is the beginning of our roux. And once it's all mixed in, you really just want to cook it for about a minute just to get that flour taste out of it. Okay, dump it all in there. Just get it all mixed in together. So again, it's equal parts flour to butter. So I'm just going to keep stirring. Do not stop stirring it because you don't want it to burn at the bottom of the pot here, okay? And you want it to be a nice, this is called a blonde roux. Alright, so this slowly gets mixed in. I try not to stop mixing because that's when it gets lumpy. So we go on low here just to make sure. So we're going to cook it just for another like 30 seconds just to get that flour taste out. Alright, that way you don't have, you know, your roux taste like flour. You want the roux to taste like a creamy, milky sauce with the cheese added to it. Okay? I think at this point, yep, our milk is pretty much up to 10. So what I'm going to do is take out the big old onion that we have in here. It's imparted some good flavor. Okay, put it to the side. Also, you want to take out our thyme leaves here. It's going to be hard to mix it into the roux if you have big old chunks of thyme. Alright, the flavor that we need is right in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, now this can get a little tricky, but to make it kind of foolproof, we want to bring this over and we're going to slowly add the milk to the roux mixture, okay, and slowly mixing it in. Make sure you turn off the stove, the fire on in the back there. Alright, so we're going to slowly add our warm, close to hot milk to the roux. You just want to keep stirring it. Alright, so we've added the entire pot of milk to our roux, and what's important with the roux is that you do not stop stirring it. If you stop stirring it, again, you're going to get a gritty, not so tasty, I mean, it's going to probably taste good, but it's going to have a weird consistency. It's going to be kind of gummy and chewy in your mouth, so you don't want that. You want a creamy consistency there. Alright, what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over to my wooden, you can use a spoon, or you can use a wooden, this is my little spatula thing here, a wooden piece of equipment. Alright, I'm going to throw my thyme back in there for a little while, just to get it more flavor. You like flavor. Okay, and at this point we want to wait for it to come to a boil, and once it comes to a boil, it's pretty close to just being the thickness and the consistency that you want it to be. Alright, and we're going to do a spoon test. Alright, so what we do is we take our spoon out. Once it boils and starts to thicken up, you want to just draw a line down the middle, and if it stays separate, then you know you're at the consistency that you need it to be. Alright, but right now we're still kind of stirring. And what you want to do is kind of get into the corners of the pot to make sure there's no roux stuck down the side like that. Okay, so that's what you want to avoid. So keep kind of scraping the bottom of our pot to get all of the roux picked up off the bottom and incorporate it into our cream sauce. Okay, so keep stirring till it boils. And stirring it actually helps to get the temperature and the heat throughout the whole thing, so it gets there a little bit faster throughout the whole milk, the whole entire thing of milk. So as you're watching it, you're going to see that the consistency is changing slowly as the heat gets through it. Okay, and this is when you want to start thinking about what seasonings you want to add into your roux. Okay, so again, I'm going to use 1 packet of my Sazon for 1/3 of the batch. We're going to use about half a pack of the chicken bouillon, just a little sprinkle of nutmeg. And nutmeg is usually that little hint in the back that you're wondering, like, what is that? So any bechamel sauce that you make, it could be an Alfredo, it could be a mac and cheese. You want to sprinkle just a little bit of nutmeg. And any chef that you see on TV will probably say the same exact thing. And that's where I got it from, and I love it. All right, adds that bit of warmth to the background of the cheese sauce. Keep stirring. This is a process, but if you're making mac and cheese for 100, you do not want to mess it up by not stirring the pot in the best way possible. So we're trying to get into the corners. Make sure you check that. Make sure there's nothing at the bottom of our pot. There. So it's starting to thicken up a little bit. I can see by looking at my spoon or spatula here, my wooden spatula, which I love. And my temperature right now is on about medium, okay? I have a medium temperature. And then the fun part comes when you add the cheese, all right? Because then it becomes like a science project. Now, I love my macaroni and cheese to be extra cheesy. So the mozzarella gives it that stringy, cheesy kind of flavor, texture. Then you have the cheddar, which gives it that orangey color, and then also that sharpness. Gruyere adds a nice tang to the cheese, to the macaroni and cheese, and then you get that salty little bite from our ground up parmesan. So I think those are my go-to 4 cheeses. Okay, so this is going to be our 4 cheese mac and cheese, but really you can do anything that you like. I know I've seen people put American cheese in there. You can put Asiago cheese if you like. You can use sharp cheddar versus mild cheddar. You can use provolone instead of the mozzarella. So it's really up to you what you want to put in there, because it just depends on what you like. This is what I like. Okay, so it's starting to thicken up. We're getting there. As you can see, I don't know if you noticed that on the spoon. It's starting to kind of separate there, but you want a little more thickness. And while that's warming up, the thyme is infusing in there. And even if some of the leaves fall off, that's amazing. It's more flavor. Yum. Okay. We're working on the bechamel. A big batch of bechamel. And lucky for you, you don't have to watch me do this 3 times. Alright, so we've been stirring for about 10 to 15 minutes, and it is going to take some time because you want to make sure, again, if you're making and spending all this time making macaroni and cheese for 100 people, that you do not leave this on the stove, because what's going to happen is the bottom is going to burn, so then you're going to have a burnt bechamel sauce, then you're going to have to throw it away and start all over again. And we don't want that, okay? We want to just keep on. Cooking takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of just standing around and waiting for things to happen. But the end result is so worth it when your food comes out exactly as you expect it to. Okay, so we're getting there with our cream sauce. And I did put some gloves on, another pair of gloves, because we're about to get cheesy and messy. Okay, so I figure start now, get the gloves on, so that we can get everything going with no problem. So as you can see, our cream sauce is starting to thicken up. Okay, and you just want to, when you see that, that means you're pretty much where you want to be. You're on our way. And it's going to be a little loose right now, but once we start adding the cheese, it's going to kind of gummy up and cheese up, and then it's going to cool down. It's going to do what it's supposed to do, okay? So keep stirring, and you can wait for it to see like a bubble or so. And you still have some of these here, which is okay, but we'll break it up as we drop it like it's hot in the pot. Okay? Alright, and while this is happening, I'm going to actually stop for a second and add our spices. Alright, so this will give it some time to infuse flavor. So we have our 1 packet of Sazon. Sprinkle that in there. And stir it. It's nice if you have a second person to help you. Then you can stir it, they can add. Why not? Okay, we're going to do our half a packet of our cubitos el pollo. Alright, so the Sazon chicken bouillon. Sprinkle that in there. Make sure you stir it as you add it so it doesn't clump up and mess up your whole sauce. There goes that again. Alright, so keep stirring, stirring. You can stop for a second if your arm gets tired. You can switch hands if you want to. You can call your kid if you have one, and they can do the stirring for a while too. I love to do that when my son's around. I love to have him stir because my arm does get tired sometimes. Okay? Alright, we have our Sazon in. Then we're going to sprinkle in, I don't know, I would say maybe about a tablespoon of nutmeg. I don't measure. I would say about a tablespoon. For this capacity, I would say about a tablespoon. And actually, while we're doing this, our cheese sauce, our bechamel cream sauce is starting to boil. Okay, so you want to stir. Once you start to see a couple little bubbles start to form at the top, get into stirring. Doesn't matter what you're doing, stop what you're doing and get to stirring, okay? And if you'll see some lumps of the nutmeg, just try to break that up. And once you add the cheese too, it'll kind of dissolve on its own. Alright, I just don't like to see lumps because it makes me nervous. All my work might be ruined from some nutmeg. Alright, so I can feel that it's thickening up also. You'll start to feel a little resistance as you're stirring, so you know you're doing what you need to do. And again, I'm breaking up these lumps just because it's going to make me nuts. Okay? And at this point, I know it's going to start to boil. I'm going to turn off the stove. I'm going to turn it off because we don't want it to overboil, because again, if we get it boiling, then we have a grainy sauce, and we already been through this. It's going to taste, you know, pretty gritty and not so good. Alright, so turn it off once you start to see it boil. It's hot enough where it's going to melt the cheese with the fire off. Alright, so we have our nutmeg, which you can see I'm chasing the nutmeg. Alright, I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of granulated garlic powder. Now, you can add as much or as little as you want. I love garlic powder, but I wouldn't go overboard. But maybe like a good tablespoon would do. Or a tablespoon and a half. Or 2 tablespoons. I don't know. You sprinkle it as much as you think you need. Alright? Again, I'm a free-for-all type cook. I don't like measurements. But it always comes out taste the same. Alright, so we have that. Now we can add our white pepper. Again, floaties there, not so good, but it's okay. White pepper, you can add black pepper too, but the white pepper just keeps the sauce white. So we're going to add about half a tablespoon of white pepper. Again, we're going to stir. Again, if you have a second hand, a kid, a husband, a friend, someone who's recording, you can have them stir the sauce. Alright. I'm going to sprinkle in, I'm going to actually do the salt last because we have some salt in the cheese that we're using, in the gruyere and in the parmesan, so we don't want to over salt, okay? And I did also salt the pasta, so we don't want to go crazy on that. So now, here's our bowl of cheese, okay? Now this is my favorite part. So now I'm just going to sprinkle in like good handfuls, and again, this is why I wore gloves, safety first, alright? So we're going to sprinkle in our cheese, and as we sprinkle it in, oh, it's going to look beautiful. Alright, so we want to stir it. And again, stirring it off the heat. Again, all of this is to avoid a lumpy sauce, a lumpy texture, a grainy texture. Alright, so add it and stir it. It's going to do something beautiful, I promise you. It may not look like that at first, but once you start to get all that cheese in there, it's like a nice little fondue. It's like a cheese bath. Pretty much we're down to our last little bit of cheese, okay? And we're going to sprinkle it all in. You know, and again, I've been stirring consistently throughout this whole entire process. And now it could be, you can, if you like it to be more orangey, you can add more. Take out some of the mozzarella or take out some of the gruyere and add more of the cheddar. You can use sharp again if you like a different taste, but keep stirring it until it's kind of lump free and smooth, okay? And just keep stirring it, give it a good whirl. And even if there's some chunks of cheese in there, that's perfectly fine because it'll melt in the pasta. Alright, and so what I like to do at this point is taste it. Remember, you need to taste all your food. Okay, so don't just go ahead and dump this cheese bath, beautiful cheese bath, over your noodles. You want to taste it, so get a clean spoon. Now what I do is I'll just let it kind of drip on the spoon because it just looks so pretty doing that anyway. It's delicious. Alright? Don't let anyone fool you. What I'm going to do is sprinkle a little bit of salt. I can taste the gruyere. I can taste the cheddar. I can taste the parmesan. I can taste the mozzarella. I can taste the garlic powder. And with the sazon and the chicken bouillon, just adds another level of flavor, okay? So what I'm going to do is sprinkle like a pinch or two. Okay? Pinch or two. Because that just helps to pick up those flavors that are missing in the cheese sauce. Alright, and so that's it. We are done with this step. Okay? This step is done. So now, let's walk over and take a look at our noodles. So we have 2 big pans, 2 out of 4 big pans of our penne pasta. And what I did was I boiled it this morning, boiling water, I should say handful, but a good like palmful of salt. Stir that, add the pasta in and let it boil I boiled it for about 9 to 10 minutes. So you want it just under, because if you boil it too much, what's going to happen is once we bake it in the oven, it's going to end up gummy, and no one wants gummy macaroni and cheese. You want macaroni and cheese with a nice bite to it, okay? So what I have here, we boiled about 10 pounds of pasta for 100 people, okay? 10 pounds of pasta dry, boiled for 100 people, okay? So now we have it in our pans, and you can let it cool. And this mac and cheese recipe is great to do in advance, okay? So we have that here. I'm going to take our lovely cheese bath and give our noodles a nice little bath here. So you want to just dump it right over. And again, this is one of the reasons why I got my hands covered in gloves. I know probably shouldn't put my hands in hot cheese, but at this point, I really don't care. But warning to you at home, use a spoon, a spatula, or something. Don't put your hands in there. I'm a professional. Okay? So I'll show you how to do this at home. So you can take 2 utensils and just kind of stir it in there. I won't put my hands in there either. It's kind of hot. So I was just playing around. Okay? Stir that up. And I like my macaroni and cheese like with a little bit of extra cheese sauce. I don't know about you. I don't like dry mac and cheese. I like my mac and cheese with a nice, rich, thick cheese sauce. And again, if you're making it in advance, it's good to have a nice extra like little bit of sauce in there, because overnight it'll kind of absorb in there. It'll absorb in, really. All right, so that's one. I'm going to do the other. Pour the rest of the sauce in here. Now, doesn't that look amazing? Really. There's nothing anyone can tell you about this mac and cheese, and no one can tell me anything. So this is good. Okay, this is bechamel cheese fondue sauce at its finest. Okay, then we take and we mix our noodles in. Okay. And what I also like to do too is taste the pasta with the cheese sauce, because I'm greedy and I want to taste it. Ding! Okay, how's that? Let's get that mixed in here. Good. Alright, so now what we're going to top this with is some more cheddar cheese. I'm just gonna loosely, doesn't have to be a lot, sprinkle our pasta with some more cheddar. You can use mozzarella, you can use some parmesan too. All right, we're gonna do that. We're gonna sprinkle that with the cheddar, and then I wasn't fully prepared for this. Excuse me. Some panko breadcrumbs, okay? That's a nice little crunchy texture on the top, and when it bakes in the oven, they get all golden brown. And I like to put it on top of the cheese, just because then the panko kind of bakes into the cheese, which causes it to have a nice, like, crunchy little texture. So now, I need some scissors. We're gonna use a knife. Don't do this at home unless you are 100% sure you can handle it. Sprinkle a little bit, not a lot, just a nice light dusting of panko on top of our macaroni and cheese. And bing, that's it. Okay? So now I'm going to actually bake this in the morning, but if you want to bake it directly from this step, you would put it in the oven at about 375. You can cover it for, I would say, 20 minutes just to get it bubbling, and then you can turn the broiler on and it'll kind of get everything else like golden brown at the top. Okay? All right, so this is our 1/3 of our macaroni and cheese for 100 people. All right, I'm coming to you from Marie Florence Catering, and I hope that you try this recipe, and we'll also have it posted up so that you have the exact ingredients and the exact measurements that you need. See you later. Deuces.